Welcome everyone to From Page to Stage. I'm your host, Wendy Corner. And this podcast is for you if you are an entrepreneur. Yes, page and stage come together in entrepreneurship. And you may be going, really? How does that work then? Well, you may have a contributory book out. You may have a solo book out. You may have a regular blog. But I bet you got socials, haven't you? And what's that if it's not published work? Tick that box. Well, what about the stage thing? A lot of folks come to me and go, oh, I could never do the public speaking thing. No. I'm not all rah, rah, rah. And you go, okay, well, who's your role model? Well, Tony Robbins. Let him do him and you do you. So we can put that to one side, shall we? My point is, if you can have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you can do a podcast just like we're doing now. So let's have you on the show to showcase your wonderful special sauce. Okay, that's the intro from me. Now, oh my goodness me, I am super excited and really privileged to be introducing you to a powerhouse of a woman, Caterina Perry. I know literally about that much of her because we've had a couple of mini conversations and we work in a network together. She was an absolute cert. I had to have her on the show. So with that little bit in mind, Caterina, I'm going to pass the baton over to you, darling. Tell us a bit about who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, so I have not an ideal story. I was an immigrant to Canada and I did not speak the language. And I had a really hard time connecting with people. And my mother, bless her soul, smart woman, but uneducated, thought, okay, I'm going to send my daughter to school with candy so that she can make friends. And that started, I think, that's the title of, that's the story behind the title of my book. But that's, I think, when I started writing the book, because that was the experiences that I was capturing, going through life, trying to figure things out myself. So no confidence growing up, no higher education. Everything that I did out of survival. And because of that, I ended up sort of adopting this imposter syndrome identity. And that has been the driving force of my career. And I've had some great success, but that's, I think, why I ended up getting to the point where I was writing a book about confidence, and B, trying to help others realize that it's not a fault in them. So that's a little bit of my story. I was born in Sicily. I am currently located in Canada. I've retired from my job a few years ago, and now I'm just exclusively working with women leaders who are suffering from imposter syndrome or are trying to prepare for a new world of work.
Yeah, because that's the thing, isn't it? We put ourselves, we're told, don't be the smartest person in the room. Level up, level up, level up. And the first time you walk into that, not the smartest person in the room feeling, you get, oh, should I really be here?
Yeah.
Which is exactly the reaction that I had when I was invited to join the posse. I had to get talked down off that particular ledge. So I love that. Can I ask, Caterina, how old were you when you migrated?
I was actually 3, but because my family was so connected, we went like every 2 years. So I still am connected to my family in Sicily. I still speak Sicilian, which is a dialect of Italian. And the reason that I don't speak formal Italian is because my parents weren't educated. My parents only went to school until, I think my mother was grade 4 and my father was grade 5. So not highly educated. So they couldn't help me with anything growing up. So that I tried to find my own path because they weren't able to support me. I think one of the things, when you talk about, not being the smartest person in the room that first time, or that just that little trigger, that was my career, because I worked for over 20 years supporting the Canadian military. And that's a very male dominated
Mm.
world that is really sort of sensitive to rank,
Oh,
position,
yeah.
status. And
Mm.
that was something that really also takes a hit on your confidence, because you cannot project a lack of confidence in those environments, or you're done for. So there was a lot of learning that I've done over the years about what happens when you step into that room. It's actually important to step out, like, when you get that feeling like you're not the smartest, is to actually step forward into it, lean into it, as opposed to shrinking away.
Yeah, yeah. Mm. Thank you, thank you. Yes, my father-in-law was a colonel in the British Army.
Mhm.
I understand the rank thing, because boy, did
Yeah.
he try and pull it a few times after he was, after he retired. I didn't know him while he was still serving, but
Mhm.
yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Enough
It's a
said. Okay, so I want to take you back in time. When
Mhm.
did you first realize that this writing thing? I appreciate that you've had the language shift as well. When did you first realize that writing was something that you could do, and actually you were quite good at it?
I don't think I still think that. I so, it was honestly, I'm a storyteller, and I love to use stories to help people relate to complex issues.
Hmm.
And because I had stories, I always had stories. People kept saying, you got to write these down. You have to write these down. You have to write these down. So I don't know if it was a choice to write a book. I think it was a more of an obligation that I felt
Mm-hmm.
to put all of these stories down, because people found that they had lessons behind the story, and there was meaning behind the story, and they could relate to the things that I went through. So it took me a long time to write this book. Like, it took me a very long time to write this book, because I didn't think that anyone would read it. I didn't think that anyone would find these stories valuable. I thought they were just meaningful for me. And in fact, I had to force myself to share the chapters as I finished them, because even when you have it done, there's this vulnerability that comes from sharing that story, that is like, whoa, how am I going to be judged? How am I going to be seen after this? So I think I forced it. I recruited my sisters and said, I want you to hold me accountable, and I want you to read one chapter a week, and
Mm-hmm.
then give me some feedback on the book. And it turned into an exercise of feedback, to then they were starting to talk about what they were getting out of it. So it was more about the lesson. So I think that's when it kind of shifted for me, to realize that there might be some value in the book, and sharing the content through my stories.
Oh, juicy, juicy. Mm. Well, that's the point, isn't it? I mean, I work with some people who've just said, I need to write a book. Okay, fine, let's do it. And there are others who go, I've been told I need to write a book.
Mhm.
I've got lots of stories like yourself, and particularly the business authors who are regurgitating the same things over and over and over again. When people ask them, that they may be doing a workshop, or somebody may ask them in a networking meeting, well, how does this, that, and the other that you do, how does that work? And out comes the same information. You're fed up of actually saying the same thing. You write it down. And
Yeah.
that's the point, is you've got a meaning behind it. You've got and I love the idea that the story carries the lesson.
Mhm.
Because very often, if you give somebody this is the lesson, they're going to go, I'm not having that. weave it into the story, and it's not confronting, it goes into your unconscious. I mean, hello, this is your department all over. Let's move into that then. So this is your first solo work. This is your first book, is your only book?
It's my only book.
For now.
For now, because I think once you break through one terror barrier, it doesn't it doesn't go back up again. You've already gone through the process, so there's nothing else to be afraid of then.
You've done it once, you can do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exciting. Okay, so that was getting the writing done. You said this took you a long time. Can you give us a rough timeline on it? Now, I appreciate that it's a lifetime's worth of work. So how long did it take you to write it? A lifetime. But the actual scribing, the process from starting it to publishing it, how long was that for you?
I'm embarrassed to tell you. It was 10 years. It was 10 years. The way it started, it probably started in an unhealthy way. I was at work, and the organization that I worked for did something that I felt broke trust between us.
Okay.
And I thought, well, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to be doing my own thing. And that day I started writing. And it was it was almost out of spite, almost out of a revenge, which is really, it's just terrible to say, but that's how it started. And what happened was, when things got better at work, I would stop writing.
So it was a self-care exercise.
Exactly. And it was self-care, it was self-soothing, it was a means to turn some negative energy in my life into something positive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because sometimes these emotions go rampant in our brains, and I don't know whether you know this phrase, they grow arms and legs. It's a particularly British system, but it gets bigger and bigger is the root of that one. So when you put it down on paper, and yes, if you physically write it, it's even more powerful than if you type it, because you've got all the kinesthetics. Oh, this is all your department anyway. All of those wonderful extra bits that you can release it through. You can literally turn the page.
Yes.
And go on and think about something else.
Yes.
I love journaling. Okay, so the book came out when?
It came out in 2022.
2022.
Oh, yeah, it's been a bit now. Yeah, it's been a bit.
And that's been okay. That was your line in the sand, and you've been continuing to work along this imposter syndrome theme since, haven't you?
I have. But I'm finding, like, I'm an executive coach, and I find that it's just so disheartening to talk to somebody who is amazing at what they do, incredibly competent, incredibly successful, and to learn that they have these underlying feelings that they're inadequate, that they're not worthy of the success that they've had, or that they're afraid to just put themselves out there. It's really been difficult, and that's why I think I've been really honing in on the imposter syndrome. I don't know that I ever connected the book with what I'm doing now. I think it just happened organically. Because now I'm talking on a regular basis on the topic of imposter syndrome. I developed programs like, how to overcome limiting beliefs, how to go beyond limits. And I don't even know that I connected it to the book. It's really funny because you talked about how one of the things that you do is you help people kind of figure out what to do with their book once it is written. Where does it go from there? And I don't think I had that lined up. I think it happened for me organically, and I get it now, but I didn't at the beginning. So I think having somebody like you to help guide that process, I think is really important for new writers.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So the imposter syndrome is your main topic, and you said you'll be talking quite a lot about it. So tell us about your speaking journey. When did you start to talk about the imposter syndrome? In what situations are you talking about them? Tell us a bit more about that.
So my speaking started when I was a leader, because when you are a leader, you are speaking to teams, you're speaking to departments, you're trying to, convince, you're trying to influence people around
Yes.
you. So that's, I think, when my speaking began. I would
Mhm.
speak at conferences. I think my first one was where I was going through a program. It was a neuro leadership program, and when I
Okay.
finished it, I thought, to try and absorb, when we are learning something, the best way to absorb what you're learning is to have a plan to teach it. And so
Yes.
what I did was I I offered to do a 3-hour session at a conference, and it just ended up being fantastic. So that's when I realized, I think, that the speaking was you know, it was a good opportunity for me to break that terror barrier. But most recently, over the last year, I joined a network of neuroplasticians. So I'm
Mm.
certified as a master neuroplastician, which just, complicated title for just having a really deep understanding of what's going on in our brain and how we use the knowledge of how our brain functions to be able to impact change in behavior. So I belong to this network, and as long as I've been working on this imposter syndrome, what ends up happening is the moment you venture into something new, it can resurface. So you can feel
Mm.
confident one day, and then all of a sudden you're revisiting imposter syndrome. So the way to break through, I've learned, is whenever I'm afraid to do something or whenever I'm uncomfortable, is to dive in and set a date. So I offered to do some roundtable discussions on imposter syndrome. And
Right.
the series has been so overwhelmingly successful that each time I would speak about it to a network of individuals who, um, for me, are more intimidating than
Mhm.
just your average public, because your average public doesn't have the same level of knowledge as a group of master neuroplasticians. So I think each time I did it, I got more and more and more confident. So I think when you talk about somebody being afraid to public speak, the way that you break through that is to just keep doing it. Just go out,
Mhm.
do it, and just keep doing it. Because the more you do it, the more you realize that there's nothing really to be afraid of.
Yeah. It's the stories we tell ourselves again, isn't it? Because every time you open your mouth with intention, you're speaking publicly.
Mhm.
And that can be to your children, to your spouse, to
Yes.
the person serving you in the shop. It's
Mhm.
all speaking publicly. I think
Yes.
we tend to put it on such a big pedestal that the fear factor rises tremendously. And so you went through school in Canada, through high school in Canada?
Yes.
Yep. The reason I'm asking this is because I believe that I certainly know that in the States, there were high school presentations that had to be done. And a lot of the people that I've come across have gone, I was ridiculed. I was shut down during that class presentation because I was so scared. I froze and I'm never going to do it again. And that's been their ultimate fear, that they can't put themselves through that again.
Yeah.
We never
That's
had that in the UK.
mm,
That was never part of the curriculum. I mean, the first time I actually did a stage thing was when I was at university as part of my speech therapy degree,
mm.
because I had to explain something that I was doing. But yeah, how does that, from a neuroplasticity perspective, and thank you for explaining that wonderful terminology, from a neuroplasticity perspective, how does that early shutdown impact you further down the track?
Okay, so I'm going to start with a story because I'm a storyteller.
Oh, please do.
I want to tell the story of the Golden Buddha. Okay. And the reason that I want to tell this story before I lead into the science is because I think the science will help, like the story will help, like relate the science. So,
Okay.
because I think that imposter syndrome is like this protective layer we put on ourselves. So in 1957, there was a monastery in Thailand that had this statue of a Buddha that represented, devotion. And
Mhm.
they there was this they got word that there might be an invasion, and so they decided to move this big clay statue to a safe place. And in moving it, the statue ended up cracking. When they went to fix it, they realized that the clay was actually covering a, a layer underneath the statue. It was solid gold underneath. What they didn't like, what happened was years and years, like generations earlier, there was a time or a threat that somebody might come and steal this solid gold statue of this Buddha. So what they did was they deliberately covered it in clay. Okay, they deliberately covered it in clay to, diminish the value, diminish the appearance of value to this thing. But what happened is over time, people forgot that that clay was just this protective layer. And I think that when we get feelings of being an imposter, I think it's like we've had a crack in our protective layer.
Mm.
A little bit of our shine is coming through, and we're like, whoa, wait a second, I didn't intend on that happening, right? You
Mm.
see, when we're growing up, these experiences, like that experience that you described in the United States, where somebody gets up to speak in public, that becomes a painful experience that gets wired into the brain. And it's a
Yeah.
memory that is very, very strong. And
Mhm.
what we do with those memories, because our brain is designed to keep us safe, it's scanning for threats constantly. And when we want to protect ourselves, we will shrink, we will pull
Mhm.
back, right? So if somebody has had that negative experience growing up, that they were criticized, that it was a bad experience, of course the
Mhm.
brain is like, well, this is not happening again. I'm not going to let you do that again. I'm not going to let you put yourself through that again. So I think what happens is we have to start recognizing that those memories, those experiences, and maybe pulling back at that time was a means to protect ourselves. But we're past that now. And we have the opportunity to create new memories that replace those old sort of, bad experiences that happen. But it takes time because
Mhm.
those old experiences, they've been there for a while. Those memories have been there for a while. And it's not just one memory, it's a number of memories over and over again. Every time, yes. And every time we had one of those, it was like we were adding more clay to our
Mhm.
perfect self. So I
Mhm.
think, and this is where I was thinking, oh my gosh, this Golden Buddha story is a means to reframe imposter syndrome so that we can embrace the concept of chipping away at that clay, chipping away at those protective layers to show a brilliant, beautiful, golden self in the middle. And I just want everyone to kind of recognize that that feeling is not something to be shied away from. It's something to be embraced so that you can choose to let go and shed that outer layer.
It's another juicy moment. Thank you. Thank you. I love that story. I absolutely love that story. My family have a connection with India,
Mm,
and my great uncle. So anyway, during the Raj, it shows you how long ago it was. Somebody brought back this marble Buddha statue, and I think over time the gold leaf on it disappeared, but it was left with as a white marble. And that was very interesting. It got used as a doorstop because our family are Christians, and it wasn't actually seen as anything reverent. But the fact that there was still some slight hints where the gold leaf had been was, now you're mentioning that, I'm going,
Mm.
ah.
Also a symbol of growth too, right? I mean, even just the transformation that statue had, it's a
Yeah.
symbol of growth that we change over time, right?
Well,
So, I mean, it's I think any kind of story can be built into a positive a positive sort of mindset for moving forward.
yes.
I think we
Yeah.
just have to find what that story is and what the a meaningful one for us, right? Because everyone relates to something different. You know, some people
Mm-hmm.
really kind of hone in. I just want to hone in on the science. What happens? What happens when the amygdala sort of lights up and, and I freak out and I'm panicking. But some people really enjoy and resonate more with a story that helps
Yeah.
them kind of move past. So I think it's really important for anyone who is suffering from imposter syndrome to not think that there's one solution that works for
Yeah.
everybody, because that in itself will can cause a threat response, because if it doesn't work for you, then all of a sudden you feel like a failure again.
Yeah. You're right back to the start. Because
Right.
I mean, audience, before we hit record, Caterina was telling me about her head and heart
Mm,
joint logos, graphics, and how they go hand in hand. Because that's the thing, isn't it? This is something that when you're telling a story, you hit the unconscious mind because the logical brain's going, no, not doing that. That's too much of a threat. But the unconscious mind is picking it up and the heart's going, oh yeah, I know that one.
yes.
And so they work hand in hand. That's beautiful. Thank you, Caterina. Thank you. Okay, so we've looked at your writing, we've looked at
Mhm.
your speaking, and now you're okay, you're not still in corporate. So are you still doing conferences, summits, workshops? Where are you speaking now?
Well, like I said, I do a monthly roundtable discussion
Yes.
with the Neuroplastician Network. I do a lot of public events. I will open events to just invite people to learn. So they're
Mm-hmm.
often free events. I've gotten to the point now where I think I'm going to be recording more of the events,
Yes.
because I just want to get a broader audience. So I speak for organizations. I speak in like there's this concept of when you're speaking, you can either speak on somebody else's stage or you can borrow somebody's stage. So somebody who has an audience and you go and you speak on their behalf, or you can build your own stage. And I build my own stage. I create my own events and I go out there and I talk about things like advancing careers
Mm-hmm.
confidence or leadership. Those are my areas. I really am dedicated to supporting leaders for a new world of work. I think the pandemic really changed everything. And
Yes.
I think that there is a new sort of direction that things are going in, and it's a very unknown direction. And I think that one of the things that leaders need, regardless of what level you are, is emotional and social intelligence. I think if you don't have those two things, those are the things that I think are going to hurt them. And imposter syndrome is part of emotional intelligence, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Have you considered setting up a podcast?
I have. The recorded events will end up being a podcast. I think I just mentioned to you that I am really starting to put my heart into YouTube. And so the YouTube will host my podcast, but I'll also have an audio version as well. So that, yeah, I'm embracing it a little bit more now, the focus on imposter syndrome and making sure that I'm getting the message out there, because I think it's a powerful one and I think we're not talking about it enough.
I think it's only relatively recently that there's been a label attached to it. I don't know your thoughts on that one, because it sounds very clinical, imposter syndrome. There's a syndrome. It's clinical. I don't want to go down there. But actually, when we unpack phrase because people will have their own individual interpretation of it. When you unpack it in that beautiful story or something similar, then people can go, oh yeah, well, that happened then, and that happened then, and that happened then. And suddenly that it becomes real, and it's something that all of us can relate to at some point. I mean, going into school with your candy bag because you didn't speak English and you needed to get some friends, and mother, well done. But in terms of, I suspect, I'm putting words in your mouth, did you feel an imposter in that situation?
Oh, 100%. Because as soon as the candy was gone, so were the friends. So
Yes.
that's why the book is called Now That the Candy's Gone, right? How do you master the art of self-confidence when the artificial means don't exist, right? How do you do that?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And I want to go back to something that you said, because you're right. Imposter syndrome has been a psychological syndrome that, is clinically sort of, it's a clinical term. And one of the discussions that we've had in our roundtables is, well, is it really a syndrome if everyone experiences it? So it really isn't. And I think there's, where there's ends of the spectrum, right? If somebody is completely incapacitated because of it, that's different. Okay. They're going to need some, psychological support in that. But most of us, it's learned behavior.
Yeah.
It's, this learned behavior that we've adopted. And therefore, I think it's really important that we start talking about imposter syndrome as something that is more open, something that's more positive, and something that's explainable. And in fact, I think I had shared with you so that you could share with your listeners an imposter syndrome assessment. Now, in the assessment that I shared, it has the description of the behavior, but it also has the science behind it. So you get to understand why it is that that behavior continues to feed the imposter syndrome pattern. So
Yeah.
once you understand that, it's kind of like opening, or sorry, not opening. That's my English language not working. Turning on the light.
Mhm.
It's turning on the light. When you start to see what's really going on, it's
Yeah.
much easier to rationalize a change in that behavior because you realize what's going on, right?
Yes. Because awareness is the first step, isn't it? Because you can't change anything until you're aware of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, beautiful. So your YouTube channel is where you're really focusing for now. So
Yeah.
audience, you'll see in the show notes that there is a link to Caterina's book. Go by. And also a link to her YouTube channel. So she will be putting more and more videos up around that.
Mhm.
And I think you can gather by now, this is a lady to follow because we've all got that imposter syndrome to some degree. You may or may not consider yourself to be an executive leader, but you're an executive leader of your own life.
Mhm.
So just take that down a step or two if that imposter syndrome is coming in relation to that title. You are the executive director of your own life. Okay, so tell me a bit then. How do you embody your words when you take them from page to stage?
I was thinking about that, and I don't know. I mean, for me, I bring myself back to that story because my stories are real. They're real stories. They're not, I don't like, they're not anyone else's stories. I bring myself back to that emotional state of what that experience was like. Because when you speak from the heart, when you speak authentically, it connects with people. That energy transmits from one person to another.
Mm.
When I think one of the things that I really try hard to do now is not 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 shy away from showing my vulnerability.
Yes.
Because I think that that's what some people find really tough. It's, they got to put on this persona. They have to
Mhm.
put on this persona that, that they're infallible, that they can't make a mistake, that they have to be perfect, that they have to overperform. And I think it's really important that we normalize that sharing of vulnerability, because that's what's going to get us through this time right now that's very difficult for some people. And I appreciate the fact that you said, imposter syndrome, it's not just something that affects leaders. It can affect a new parent. It can affect somebody whose just life has changed. Somebody who they were a stay-at-home parent, and now their kids have grown up, and now all of a sudden, their identity is in question. Well, who am I now if I'm no longer the caregiver? I think anytime there's a shift in in us, or anytime we step out of our comfort zone, that's when imposter syndrome comes in. That's when it starts to generate those feelings of self-doubt. So I think that creating stories that resonate with the audience that you're talking about, I would never go into a school and talk about executive leadership. I would
Yeah,
go into a school and speak to that audience. So I think if you can do that, and if you can do that from a place of authenticity, everything else just falls into place.
absolutely, absolutely. Audience, shameless plug for my own stuff. My YouTube video this week was quite literally vulnerability is the currency of connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more we are prepared to open ourselves up, the more we connect with our audience,
Yes.
because people buy the why before they buy the what.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I'll share with you an experience that I had that really just drives this point home for me. Is I was new in my role as a leader, and
Mhm.
I was speaking to a group of 25 military commanding officers.
Oh,
Okay.
yes. She says sitting up straight.
Whoa, I was not, yeah, I was standing straight. Now I was behind a podium, and it
Uh-huh.
was like a U shape. And I said something that just did not strike one of those commanders well. Like it triggered him, and he called me out on it. And so I'm new in my role, and wow, I had a choice. I could, just try and, explain it away, just stay behind the podium. What I did was I came out from behind the podium, and I walked towards this commanding officer where they were sitting in this U shape. And I said, you're absolutely right. And I should rephrase what I just said. And that admission I heard afterwards. Now, you don't always get the information afterwards, but I did hear afterwards from the spouse of one of the members in the room that said that that was a pivotal moment that gained respect. Because I think if we try to make ourselves appear infallible, it's not believable. I think
Yeah.
we have to embrace our imperfections. I think we have to embrace when we go and show that we're still learning,
Yeah.
because we are. It doesn't matter how old we are always still learning. And the minute we think that we know it all, man, game over.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I feel that that realization comes with age, because when I came out of university, I thought I knew it all. I just got a degree. And the older I've got, the more I've gone, you may have a theory, but yeah, let's put in a little bit of experience behind that before you can, and never do state categorically.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, what was truth yesterday? Hmm, hello, it's changed today.
Exactly. It's funny, but every one of our experiences shapes the way we see the world, and
Absolutely.
everyone sees the world through their own experiences.
Yeah.
So I have this image, and I think this is what it looks like. It looks like a group of people sitting in a circle, and they all have virtual reality glasses on, and they're all seeing the world through their own set of reality glasses because it's been shaped by their life experiences.
Yes.
And isn't it amazing that we can even still have conversations with each other?
Oh,
Right?
tell me about the Lost in Translation. I can give you plenty of stories of that one. And it's mostly between English native speakers as well from different parts of the world. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, Caterina, I could talk to you forever. But what I'm going to do is, for our audience's sake, have you got anything as we're winding up? Have you got any words of wisdom to finish off?
Yes, your past does not define your future. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that what has happened yesterday, like if you made a mistake trying something yesterday, that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen in the future, because each day that we live, we change as human beings. Um, we make a mistake in the past, that version of ourselves no longer exists. So you can't hold yourself accountable for that mistake anymore because you've changed, you've learned from that mistake. So I would say, we're at a point where we have so many opportunities to explore and to try new things and to be who we want to be, that we should be embracing it. And I think that's my message, just if you've got an inkling, if there's a little spark in you and something that you need to do, whether it's writing a book or, getting a new job, whatever it is, go for it. Because this world has been presented to us as an opportunity. And
Yes.
we choose our destiny. We choose what we do. We can choose to go down the path of regret or, self-pity, or we can choose to be explorers and to, put ourselves out there.
So are we going to be explorers, audience? I think we should, don't you? Let me reframe that. I invite you to be an explorer, because that imposter syndrome does not need to hold you back. Oh, Caterina, thank you so much for sharing your From Page to Stage.
Well, it was such a pleasure, Wendy. I had an amazing time having a conversation with you, and I too could be talking all day with you. So I think we'll have to set up another time so that we can continue our conversation.
Absolutely. Audience, I'm going to turn off now, but we may not finish. Okay. For now, for us, bye for now.
Take care.